I can't
do it then.
Country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Oh.
Sanchez caught Young and Fashanu in there. Sanchez was in there, and that's a goal for Wimbledon. Lawrie Sanchez. Well, what a typical Wimbledon goal. Dennis Wise delivers the free kick. Lawrie Sanchez sneaks in and glances it into the far corner. Oh, the tension here. He's checked with both linesmen. Oh, and there it is. The crazy gang have beaten the Culture Club. Wimbledon have destroyed Liverpool's dreams of the double, and all over the pitch their players are celebrating something which a few years ago would have been impossible. Sporting gesture by the Liverpool supporters. Her Royal Highness applauds one of the great cup shocks of all time.
Yeah, hard to believe it is 30 years ago this year that Wimbledon caused the greatest shock in FA Cup final history, beating Liverpool. What a line from John Motson on commentary. The crazy gang beating the Culture Club. And the man who made it all possible, who scored the winning goal that day, Lawrie Sanchez, is on the line now. Evening, Lawrie.
Good evening to you.
I'm sure you've heard that commentary and watched the goal back thousands of times at this stage. Is that a moment? Is that a goal? Is that a day that changed your life forever?
Does it change my life? As you look back on it, at the time when you were living it, you didn't realise how important it was. When you look back on it now, and you still talk about it 30 years later, you realise that perhaps it was it certainly was a defining moment in my playing career. No doubts about that, and probably the club's Wimbledon's playing time as well. And but it is a memory now. John Motson famously retired this week or at the end of this season as well, and he mentioned that it was one of his highlights. So it's good. I mean, it's nice for your son to be able to have those memories of his father, if you want.
You really get a sense, even from the audio commentary there, of the atmosphere on the day, the sheer volume of noise within the stadium, reflective of just how big an FA Cup final was back then. It was bigger than the European Cup. It was bigger than the league title. This was the one day of the year that football was centre stage in every single household in countries around the world.
Well, I mean, you've got to remember as well, it was the last all-standing game at Wembley, so it was a 92,000 crowd there, before it went down to all-seater and lost, 18,000 odd seats, 18,000 places. So it was a massive crowd. Again, it was the last time that the FA Cup was shown on both BBC and ITV, and that build-up used to start in the morning. There used to be hits and knockouts and celebrity this, celebrity that, all around the cup final, leading up to the cup final being the peak. I mean, the whole day was set aside for the cup final. Not like it is at this moment in time, where that it's pushed to 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock or this or that, or other things take more precedence. It was the defining game of the season. And you've got to remember as well, Liverpool, who were exceptional at that time. I mean, John Barnes was Player of the Year, I think, and Peter Beardsley was in that team. If they had been in Europe, I mean, we had the 5-year ban at that time. If they'd been in Europe, they'd have another couple of European Cups under their belt, I'm sure, that side. They're a magnificent side. They'd won the league at a romp. And we were up against them on what was a defining day for myself and for our club, and we stood up to the challenge. Luckily, I scored the goal, but it stands out there now, years later, as one of those real rags to riches story. A team that had come from non-league 25 years previously to beating the best team in probably Europe at the time.
Yeah, it's important to reinforce that point, probably for younger listeners, because this game is my earliest memory of watching football, and for anybody probably 35 or older, it's a game that's etched in their minds. It was such a brilliant story because Liverpool were such an outstanding team. It was only 5 or 6 weeks after they'd beaten Forest 5-0 in a league game that's often described as their best ever performance. They were a team, if they were in Europe, probably would have still been winning European Cups. Whereas now, if you were to look at it statistically, you would think, well, Wimbledon finished 7th in the league, they finished 6th the previous year, that this is like Burnley beating Manchester City in a cup final, which wouldn't be seen as one of the great underdog stories. But from playing Division 4 football 7 years earlier, it was the ultimate rags to riches story.
It was, and as I say, people don't realise. I mean, in my time, my generation, Liverpool were the Man City, Manchester United, Arsenal rolled into one of that time. The 70s and mid-70s to early 80s, they were the dominant force in English football. And they were exceptional, and they were dominant in Europe as well. So for us to go there on that, when they were going for the double, and to turn over that team, and deserve to at the end of the day as well. I think we deserved to win the game. To do that, made it doubly pleasurable, if you want. And I think we were 4-1 underdogs at the time. And it's unusual in a two-man final to have 4-1 underdogs, especially as we finished 8th in the league that year. So we weren't by any means a poor side, but we played a certain way, they played a certain way. So it was a clash of cultures as well, and all those things came together to make what was not a memorable final playing-wise, but a memorable result, if you want.
I was wondering, all right, how now, 30 years on, you look back at the way we still talk about this game and the coverage as Wimbledon being this ultimate underdog, considering how well you were playing in the league, considering the talent of the players within that team. When you look at the players alongside you, Vinnie Jones, Dennis Wise, John Fashanu, Terry Gibson, Dave Besant in goal, John Scales coming off the bench, the fine careers so many of those players had. This wasn't a team that was still in the non-league. This was a team, as you say, had maybe a very set style that was somewhat in stark contrast to the way Liverpool played, but it was a style that worked far more than just on this one day in Wembley. Yeah,
and you missed Terry Phelan out of there, obviously a Republic star. Yeah, we were, I think at the time, we weren't regarded, despite the fact of the rise of the story from, although they'd been in the league 25 years, the rise from the Division 4 to the top division took 5 years, I think. And then we finished 6th our first season in the top division. I think we finished 7th or 8th in the second season. We played the cup game. And in fact, we were the last team, I think, to win at Anfield in the league. Prior to that, we'd won the previous season, and that was the last time Liverpool had been beaten at home in the league. So in ourselves, we were confident of our abilities and what we could do. But I think that it's the rise of the story of Wimbledon from where it had begun to where they were competing against the giants of Europe, and the fact that we won it. If we'd have lost it, a lot of people wouldn't even refer to that cup final, it'd just be another one. But the fact that we actually won it and deserved to win it, and we played, as I say, there was a clash of styles as well. Liverpool were the culture club, as John Watson famously said about them, and we were the crazy gang of South West London. So it was a clash of styles as well as everything. Clash of cultures, clash of clubs, clash of history. Clash of new boys against old boys. It was a clash on many, many levels, and ultimately a team that we were the underdogs, but probably to the ordinary person in the street, we were their team against the aristocrats of Liverpool, and it's nice when that story sometimes gets turned on its head.
One of the reasons as well that we still look back on it is because of, I don't want to say it's taken on a mythical status, but was the crazy gang, because I think there was nothing mythical about it. It seems everything that we heard did happen, from the burning clothes of new signings to the drinking sessions to the fighting inside the dressing room, and the recent documentary that came out gave a good insight into it. When you look back now, long since having left Wimbledon, just how crazy were those times?
It's strange. I say to people often ask me that question, what was it like being part of that culture or in that situation? And when it's your daily life, you just accept it for normal. It's like being in the middle of a hurricane or a tornado. When you're right at the eye of it, it seems completely normal to you. It's only when you come outside of it you realise all the turmoil and destruction and everything that people see it from outside that it causes, and we, as I say, we led it. It was our daily lives. You had to be sharp as a pin in the dressing room, banter-wise and all sorts-wise. On the training field, you had to be sharp as well. You couldn't have a day where you thought, I'll just take this easy today. But, the tackles flew in and everything in training. We trained like we played, to be fair. And when we crossed the line together, we didn't all get on. This is well documented. We didn't all get on. But once we crossed the line, we were in it together, and we were a team. And a team ultimately is the sum of the parts is greater than the actual parts itself, and we were that. We together we gelled. in a way that perhaps as individuals, if we'd just done our own thing, we wouldn't have done. We had a method of successful. We believed in it. We were successful, and we took it. Along with good coaching, we took it to people and showed them, well, we're here. Let's get on with it. And sometimes teams got carried away with the crazy boy stuff, wanted to prove how strong how tough they were, and they forgot that they were better footballers than us, and wanted to concentrate on their physical aspect. And in those days, you could be more physical than you could now. I mean, you see the tackles now that stopped Europe. I mean, your eyes in our day, not just us, but the whole division at that time. Tackles were allowed to crunch in, people were allowed to challenge for balls with elbows. All sorts used to go on. But obviously with 20 odd cameras nowadays, and most of that is not, we were only covered by one or two cameras in our days, so most of that stuff wasn't caught on film. But today, any indiscretion is caught on film and reviewed afterwards, something that never happened in our day. But that said, with all the other stuff, at the end of the day, most of those players went on from that cup final. I mean, Dave Besson left that season after that summer to go to Newcastle, and he was a world record transfer for a goalkeeper. I mean, Terry Phelan went on and left and was a world record signing as a left back. Scales left later on and became a world record signing as a centre half. So all these players went on and proved, and most of them capped internationally. I think the final gave us credibility, and after that, people realised, these are good players, and we need them in our team. They're winners,
So with that in mind, do you look back at that time and think, we got the absolute maximum out of this group of players? Or is there also a part of you that looks and thinks, well, actually, maybe if we'd had a slightly different way of playing at times, a slightly different attitude within the group, we could have gone on and achieved even greater things?
No, we as I said, we were better than some of our parts. And the other thing would have been interesting. For the Cup Winners' Cup, it would have been in those days, wouldn't it? And we would have got into Europe, having won the Cup, and we would have played in Europe, and we would have rampaged through Europe as well. We have no doubts about that. The way we played, our level of commitment, what we could achieve at Plough Lane, or as we played out in those days before the Premier League, we could have rampaged through Europe. But I'd love to have a tilt at a European competition, because I wouldn't put it past us to win one.
Yeah, European football wouldn't have seen too many teams like Wimbledon, I dare say.
No.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, the Crazy Gang documentary that came out quite recently, it's well worth a watch. I was wondering if you noticed any sort of a change in attitude amongst people towards what Wimbledon achieved since that came out, and a lot of the stories, because I guess it was 30 years ago, our attitudes towards what masculinity is and what men are meant to be has changed a lot in terms, and in football has changed a lot in terms of violence, in the way players speak to each other now, and the just general attitudes around training grounds and what's acceptable. Do you look back in hindsight and think, wow, some of the things that we got up to, and some of the pranks that may have been seen back then, some of the attitudes towards new signing, towards younger players were unacceptable? Or do you feel it was 30 years ago, it was just the way things were at the time?
Yeah, they wouldn't have been acceptable today. I mean, no bones about that. There would have been accusations of bullying, and well-founded accusations of bullying. I think John Scales brought it up in the video himself. He felt, he didn't say the word, but he felt intimidated by some of the stuff that went on. Players didn't make it at our club. I mean, good players came in, and for one reason or another, they couldn't deal with the situation at the club, with everything that went around it. So, yeah, I make no bones, that club as such couldn't survive in the modern day with the modern scrutiny, the modern era, the modern snowflake generation. Would not be possible to, there'd be court cases left, right and centre. But it was 30 years ago, and the culture, whether people like it or not, culture 30 years ago is completely different to the culture now. Some would say today for the better, and I'd probably agree with that. Certainly some of the things that we got up to, or what happened in the dressing room, you're not accepting any dressing room today. But it was a different time, and much as you can talk about, well, it shouldn't have happened then if it shouldn't happen today. Different generations have different standards. I think famously, I was just reading the paper today, they're going to show the Dam Busters film in 400 cinemas, and they're going to just leave the original name of the dog in it, which you obviously can't say today because it's a completely non-acceptable term. But in the 1940s, there was nothing that was thought of it. So, there are different generations, and the producer of the film said, you have to accept what was acceptable at the time. you can't, in hindsight, look back on it and say, well, today it's not acceptable, therefore we have to rip down everything that went with it. You have to get on with it. You live in the area that you live in.
So when you meet up tomorrow night and there's a little bit of a reunion at AFC Wimbledon to honour the 30-year anniversary, do you all look each other in the eye and think, yeah, we soldier together, we achieved something great? Or is there maybe in the wake even of the documentary, is there a part of you that are looking at each other thinking, all right, we realise we overstepped the line here at times?
No, I think now, I saw. I love American films about sport. I can't remember the name of the film, and the talk before the final for these players was that sometime in the future, when you're old men, you'll be able to look across the room and know you've achieved something together. You won't have to say anything. You can just look, and you know. And that's what we have. Whether we like each other or not, whether we're best friends or not, however we get on today or however we got on then, you look across the room and you know that you shared something with people that was unique. And that is something, whatever way you look at it, is special.
And it still is special, even to this day, this FA Cup victory, because the way the FA Cup has been tainted over probably almost 25 years at this stage, even talking around the office, people asking what time is the cup final on Saturday, whereas, as you say, everyone knew it was 3 o'clock Saturday. The build-up began at 9 a.m. and we got such a good insight into the squads and the teams and the way the BBC and ITV covered it. When you look back then and the day and the week leading up to the cup final, are there memories that stand out of not just the game and winning, but really the hype around the event?
Yeah, I mean, on one respect, the hype today is 10 times more. I mean, much as you rightly say, people say, well, what day is it and when is it and what kick-off time? And you used to know when it was. The thing today, though, is we don't have the internet, which is probably good in those days, but with the internet and everything around it and the media coverage, the coverage is actually 10 times more. Everybody wants to know every individual thing about every individual player. So the intrusion is probably a lot more than it was in our day when it was just two TV channels and, the broadsheets and in this country. Now it is a worldwide thing, and every media outlet wants some part. So for the players, I'm sure it's a massive, probably bigger thing than in our day. That said, for me, it was, for me, the time that it got tarnished a little bit, the FA Cup, was when Man United pulled over to go to the World Club Championships. I don't know if you remember that. They as champions, at
the turn of the century,
winners, they were allowed to go, and they didn't put a team in the competition, and so that was a bit disappointing. And from then, the cup has taken some of the credibility out of the cup. But now it's the last game of the season again. It's a massive build-up. Two of the biggest teams in the country. For the players themselves to play, you can play all your life. I played all my career. I've got one winner's medal for Fourth Division champions. I've got promoted another time, got promoted twice without any medals, no playoffs or anything like that. And I won an FA Cup winner's medal, and I played 17 years. And I would say that is probably, that is in the top 10% of what players achieve. Because a lot of players play their whole life, don't win anything. Even the top players. I mean, I think Alan Shearer won. Played all his career, best player, one of the best goal scorers ever to play in the Premier League, won the league once. So winning trophies is as I say to people, I sometimes do chats for players and such like. At the end of the day, your kids won't ask you to see a copy of your wage packet at your peak. They want to see something like a medal, because a medal holds everything about what you were and what you did. Your wage slip doesn't necessarily cover that.
Where is the medal?
It's on display. I used to have it locked away in my safe for years, and I thought, well, that's a bit of a waste of time. So I've got it out. I've got a little box, and I've got it in my front room. So you walk into my front room, you can see it.
Nice.
I've got to say one thing. I mean, I do love the way Americans do things, but the fact that they give the rings, that they can wear to dues, like they can wear to, their whatever major dues they go to, like PFA dinner or whatever. Yeah. I think it's a great thing that players could turn up with a cup final ring and have it on their finger. Something garish and something big and something expensive, but shows that they won a cup. I think that's a terrific idea, and perhaps it's probably a better idea than a medal. But I've got my medal on display. Come to my front room, you can see it.
The good amount of those Liverpool players who played in 88 had already won a cup final in 86 or went on to win one in 89. but they were on the receiving end of this shock. What was the atmosphere like at full time, and as he headed back to the dressing room, what was the reaction like from the Liverpool players?
Well, I'll tell you what the reaction was like. By the time we'd done the lap of honour, done our media things, got back in the dressing room, so you're talking 20, 25, 30 minutes probably tops back in the dressing room. And all of a sudden I thought, well, we haven't swapped shirts. And in those days, you only got one shirt for a cup final. You didn't, today they get one to swap and one to keep, So me and Dave Besson went next to the away dressing room to knock on the door to see if we could swap shirts with them, and they'd gone.
They were gone from the stadium?
They were gone, yeah.
No hanging about?
No hanging about. Not what they expected. They weren't hanging about. And likewise, 80% of that crowd were Liverpool fans as well. Because you've got to remember, we averaged about 6,000, 6,500 at home. So, our crowd fan base is smaller than Bournemouth, and so if we had 12, 15,000 fans there, I'd be surprised. But, all those Liverpool fans had left the stadium as well. So we'd do a lap of honour, and we're doing it to a three-quarters empty stadium. So that's my abiding memories. We weren't there to be celebrated by the Liverpool fans. That was for sure, all by the team who disappeared.
What was the party like that night?
Oh, brilliant. I mean, I've got to say, in all my time at Wimbledon, and we were ramshackle. It was a ramshackle. We were a non-league club in everything apart from the team on the field that were a Premier League club. The ground was non-league. The administration was non-league. 5,000. We say 6,500 average. You didn't have to have a Premier League outlay. It was non-league in every aspect apart from the team that went on the field. That day was the one, or that night was the one night where they did us proud. I mean, they had a marquee on the pitch. So we came down the tunnel into a marquee. Everybody had an individual table for guests and that. They did Match of the Day live from there. So there was Jimmy Hill and I'm trying to think, Des Lynam. They were presenting it live from they had a little bunker in the corner.
Right.
So they got us all into it, at certain times to talk to us live, because then Match of the Day was live in those days, not pre-recorded. And it was just an excellent night. As I say, I always think of it as the one time Wimbledon, the actual football club, did everything right for the players, and it was a fantastic night. That said, by about 12 o'clock at night, I am absolutely... I didn't eat, because, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're talking, you're drinking, but you're not eating. 12 o'clock at night, and it was 100 degrees that day, pitchside. So, by then everything had come in, tiredness, the drink. I was just falling asleep, and I said, I've got to go. I've got to go back to the Canizares, which is a lovely hotel on the Common. So I was on my way out, back down the tunnel with my wife, and I met my brother coming in because he'd been out celebrating. He'd bet on me I think he had 10 quid on me at 33 to 1. Oof. So he actually won more money because we didn't get a bonus for winning than I did. So he was literally coming into the tunnel as I was walking out. And I said, "Where you been?" He said, I've been having a drink, been celebrating. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going back to bed." He said, "What do you mean you're going to bed? It's 12 o'clock. You've just won the cup final. Your goal score, when he scored the goal, you've got to stay up forever." I said, "Vince, I'm falling asleep. I can't keep my eyes open. I'm knackered." I said, "I'll tell you what, you go in, celebrate for me, get out to the hotel in the morning, and you can come I'll get you on the coach and you can on the bus ride with us around town." Didn't see him for about 3 weeks. He was the last man chucked out of that marquee, and just missed the bus ride, and I saw him 3 weeks later. He was still celebrating. The
winnings didn't last too long.
I mean, in those days, £330 was a lot of money.
Lawrie, it's been brilliant to talk to you. I won't lie, you made my 7-year-old self cry quite a lot. I'm sure you've
told me that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard that a lot down the years.
Yeah, no, but they've had their moments since, to be fair, and they got them back. They beat my Wickham team in the semi-final in 2001. So my life has been tied up in Liverpool.
Yeah, I got to the stage by 2001 where I wasn't shedding too many tears over Liverpool anymore. Lawrie, great stuff. Pleasure to talk to you, and enjoy the reunion tomorrow night.
All right, thanks very much.
Football on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by the Boyle Sports app. Cash out and in-play betting available in the App Store and Google Play Store.
The Pat Kenny Show.
On tomorrow's programme, a Turkish human rights journalist who's been jailed for her writing and who's facing a trial again in 2 weeks' time. What to do if you're being excluded by work colleagues. I Want to Live Forever, Mark O'Connell on his new book, To Be a Machine, which explores the fascinating transhumanism movement using tech. Stuart Clark on new music from the Arctic Monkeys, plus a review of the Rolling Stones at Croker, and the Friday Forum discusses all the big news of the week.
The Pat Kenny Show.
With MasterCard.
Tomorrow morning at 9.
On News Talk.
Hi, Kevin O'Brien here of Leinster Lightning and the Irish cricket team.
And I'm Lawrie Delaney, captain of the Irish women's cricket team.
Cricket is the perfect summer sport where new players are always welcome.
Cricket is one of the fastest growing sports in Ireland.
And with 42 clubs in Leinster, there's one near you.
And they're all on the Cricket Leinster website, cricketleinster.ie.
Cricket Leinster, you're welcome.
Delicious cabinet designs, generous helpings of storage, and a menu of unique features expertly put together for you. Feast your eyes on a Cube kitchen. At Cube, we've been making fantastic kitchens for over 50 years. Call in today and we'll design one specially for you. See our kitchen and wardrobe ranges at cubeinteriors.com, plus our furniture collection including Caligaris, or call into one of our showrooms in Dublin and Cork. Cube, the shape of kitchens to come.
Best thing about May? It's summer, but you can enjoy it because the kids are still in school. It's warmer, even if there's no actual sunshine. And the amazing sale is on at appliancesdelivered.ie, with up to 25% off washing machines and dishwashers, up to 60% off cooking appliances, and up to 25% off fridges and freezers. There's even up to 20% off garden and DIY, because you never know, there could be 2 sunny days in a row. Living the dream. The May sale now on at appliancesdelivered.ie. Why pay more?
Tubs and Tiles. Sale now on. Save on the latest collections of quality Spanish and Italian tiles and everything you need to design your dream bathroom. From award-winning bathroom suites and furniture to showers and wet rooms. Visit tubstiles.ie for locations in Sandyford and Colmore Road in Dublin and other showrooms nationwide. Tubs and Tiles. Sale now on.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Oh, I always love the sound of that music on a Thursday night. Graham Hunter, good evening.
Hi, Nathan. How are you?
I'm all right. So, Spanish clubs have now won 8 of the last 9 European titles. This league you cover is not so bad.
Yeah, they've only won it because they're extremely good at football. There's no help in the location where finals are played, nor from the referees. I think, honestly, I know, having grown up in an era where Germany won everything, clubs, the national team, I'm well aware that everybody around the world starts to root for other clubs, whether they like Marseille or not, whether they like Liverpool or not. Everybody, with the exception of Gary Neville, is probably rooting for Liverpool next week in Kiev after Atleti adding to the litany of clubs who go from La Liga and either face a La Liga opponent in a European final or else show the other team that they've got better players, better tactics, better nerve, noisier fans. It's a pretty demolishing record that the Spaniards have. And I think the last time that a Spanish team was beaten in a knockout European final, other than by another Spanish team, was Valencia and Bayern Munich, a game I was at in Milan in 2001, which is a couple of years ago.
Wow, yeah, that's a pretty incredible record. And last night, finals, they don't generally go according to plan. Freakish things tend to happen. But last night was the complete opposite. Atletico showed incredible confidence in their defensive system, and Griezmann delivered with the flair and the panache up front. Was it Diego Simeone's game plan? Was that it executed to perfection?
Listen, Nathan, it's overdue that you call me out and disagree with me on something, but my absolute firm sort of conviction, as it was before the match too, I'm not trying to sort of retrospectively claim credit, the better team won. If you look, before you look at how Atleti defend, even if you take into account, say, the first 10-15 minutes where Marseille were all guns blazing, a little bit like Manchester United in Rome against Barcelona, where you can clinically say, well, there was a small period when they looked competitive. Beyond that, Marseille did not have the players, man for man, or as a team. French league is weak in terms of team play, in terms of quality, in terms of an ability to cope with a team that has exceptional footballers to pose them questions. And beyond that, Payet, if you're a West Ham fan, whatever you think about him, He's a footballer who can do special things, who can turn games. It stunk, the fact that everybody around Marseille said he wasn't going to be ready. He started rather like Diego Costa in Lisbon against Real Madrid. I couldn't have told you for sure he'll go off in the 15th or 20th minute, but it didn't seem at any stage that he was right. And therefore, when you get a situation like that, you know that the coach in charge of the club that plays the player who shouldn't be on the pitch is desperate and knows they're going to lose. The distance between the two teams at the end, the fact the first goal came from a mistake, even before you talk about Koke's brilliant display. And I think that's essential to say that when the defence is praised for Cholo Simeone's Atleti in general and in Lyon, you must mention that Oblak is at or around the best keeper in the world. I think it's a one-on-one, with all due respect to Marc-Andre ter Stegen, it's a one-on-one fight between Oblak and David De Gea for the outright number one keeper in the world. And then in front of that back four that concedes so rarely, Gabi is tiring and is old, but is a street fighter, and he's taught Koke well. So when Griezmann scores, just the role Koke plays in the goals and in the domination and the way in which he can break up play, organise the midfield, put intelligence into the passing and make a killer pass, made it really close that Koke might compete with Griezmann for man of the match. And if you pitch all that against what you saw from Marseille, collectively or individually from the coaching, it not only did the right team, and I honestly, in that instance, didn't believe that there was any other result likely.
Marseille did have a very early chance, and maybe they had at 2-0, they had a bit of a flourish for 10 minutes towards the end. But again, Atletico just seemed to have that inbuilt confidence in the way that they're set out to play, that it never looked as though they were going to throw this away. And you mentioned the coaching there. How, you look at that and you just know it takes hours and hours of work on structure and the boring stuff. The stuff that, I remember recently talking to DeAndre Edlin up at Newcastle about Rafa Benitez. He said, listen, it's not fun what we do, but ultimately we're safe, we finish mid-table, so the ends justifies the means. What's Simeone like on the training ground? Is it 11 on the pitch, play for 10 seconds, stop everybody, check your positions, pull somebody back 5 yards? Is it that intense?
It was, Nathan, in 2012-13. After that, it's about nuance. It's about fine detail, because he has got, and if you notice, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because Rafa Benitez is a different coach from Simeone. Rafa Benitez on the coaching pitch, as you and I both know, is on you like a hawk, will complain about being 2 inches out of position or having your body turned 1 inch the wrong way. He's that meticulous. Simeone's different. Simeone is asking that 4, 5, even 6 players are moving in complete harmony in terms of when they move left, right, forward, back. If one guy breaks out to deal with a situation, then the blanket reaction around him must be perfect. So sometimes they'll train in what looks like, well, we used to play at school, cross the border, where you used to run across the playground and the caught ones used to hold hands to try and trap whoever was running across the border. Training can be like that. A lot of hand-holding, a lot of coordination to make sure that a small number of players, say 4, can contain a larger number of players, say 7. And it isn't about ingenuity. I've seen that often across Spain. So, for example, a drill that helped Spain win the World Cup in 2010, repeatedly, again and again in Potchefstroom, was a keeper, Pepe Reina usually, and 2 defenders against 4 attackers running at them from the halfway line. Now, your point from Newcastle is that initially when you're learning that, it's not only a little bit boring, it can be disconcerting. You're told to do things that aren't necessarily natural to you because there's a very particular coaching specification, and what you're doing isn't about you and your opponent, it's about you and your teammates at all stages. But now the majority of that squad has been together since Cholo Simeone took over, particularly the outfield players. So, albeit that it's only human that occasionally in La Liga there might be a drop, and in the Champions League there was a drop in efficacy, particularly in scoring. And that's really the only thing that's ever in doubt with Atleti. Do they get the first goal? And against a really good opponent, do they get 2 goals? So I understand the comparison with Rafa Benitez, but Simeone is not the yeller and the shouter and the bully that he appears on the touchline when he's going absolutely crazy. if you're crossing the line, if you're disobeying him, if you will not listen, fine. You get one hard look, one hard telling off, and then you're out the door. Other than that, he's a guy who believes in raising up morale, about having individual psychology coaching sessions. He takes time out to ask the players about how they are, like how their family are, what they're watching on TV. He gets under their skin in a way which is not Sergeant Major only, despite the ferocious outlook that you get when you see him on the side of pitches. Yes, he's demanding. Yes, he will cut you off if you will not learn his way. But he's a very different teacher. He gets really involved and he gets people's loyalty, which I think is vital in any level of sport.
We're probably guilty of talking about Simeone in a where next, linking him with Chelsea, linking him with Arsenal. It's probably a good time actually to pause and recognise what he's actually achieved at Atletico, going up against arguably the greatest club side of all time in Barcelona, and a Real Madrid side that could show a dominance in the Champions League that we've rarely seen in recent decades. To win 2 Europa Leagues, a La Liga title, a Copa del Rey, to get to 2 Champions League finals. The dynasty that he's built up, they're going to build a statue of this guy outside the Wanda. Is that something that plays on his mind, that actually instead of looking at what's next, what he can do if he stays for 10, 12 years rather than the 7 he's been there now?
Nah, that's asking me to anticipate more than I know, because that's a very long period in football. And the reason I'm ducking away from might he be tempted to do a 10, 12-year stint is that he's not planning that far. I'll tell you 2 things that are factual. One, I think he'd already be committed to being Chelsea manager this summer if he could learn English. Chelsea have been back in contact with him. The first contact came directly to Cholo Simeone's sister, who will represent him, when they knocked Mourinho's Chelsea, I'm sure, out of the Champions League semi-final in 2014 and went on to lose that game in Lisbon to Real Madrid. At that stage, he wasn't ready to go. Their interest hasn't dimmed, and for the very reasons you've explained, well, why would it? Cholo Simeone has been attempting to learn English, not specifically to join Chelsea, but because he knows it's a tool that he's going to need if it's not Serie A next, where Lazio and Inter are forming a queue for him, whereas Italian is fine, where the brand of football and the types of players will fit to his methodology. But, the Premier League is eons ahead of Italy in terms of importance, in terms of recognition, quality of opposition, pay. That's a big factor. And his assistant, Mono Burgos, speaks good English. And therefore, it's feasible that Chelsea's renewed interest, which is now months old this season, could still end with Cholo Simeone going there, but I don't think it will. I think that he wants to be able to speak the language of the country that he works in next. And he is attracted by continuing his success at Real Madrid. But the other point that I want to make that is true, factually true, and will determine the length of his stay is he keeps saying, give me consistency in my squad. He's understood that occasionally a big name will be sold. And in that 6.5 year period where he's won 6 trophies and made 4 European finals, and those who have been lovingly burying their cynicism or their disappointment in Arsene Wenger and saying he's the loveliest, greatest man ever who changed the Premier League, need to take a right good look at themselves and say, no. Wenger's last few years showed he'd been changed by the Premier League, dropped his standards, and Simeone is the yardstick by which that's how, on a smaller budget, a smaller club than Arsenal, a smaller fan base, fewer facilities, less coaching staff, less scouting staff, you reach 4 European finals, you earn vast amounts of Champions League money, which is what Wenger's yardstick was. You pick up domestic titles, you finish ahead of Real Madrid this season for only the second time in 22 years, blah, 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 blah. So Simeone wants a consistent squad, even if occasionally a star is sold. And that's what the club have been giving him. That's why he's stayed switched on, plugged in and completely committed and not dropping his levels. And for all of us who work here in Spain, Nathan, loan me that last baby.
Yeah, and it's quite a compliment to him as well that players who do leave, who do go on, make those big moves, the like of Felipe Luis and Diego Costa, end up coming back, and that they want to go and they want to work with him and see what they can achieve again. And even Fernando Torres, who Simeone wasn't in charge of when he left initially, comes back for this last hurrah. last night was the last time he'll be involved with Atletico. It was a really nice touch to see him lifting the trophy, and it's hard to believe in many ways that he's 34 at this stage. Is this seen as, this second spell at Atletico, is it seen as a success?
Yeah, I mean, undoubtedly, because they've been competitive. He's had a reasonable amount of games. He's had a reasonable number of goals. So therefore, across the board, whether you're an Atleti-oriented analyst or journalist, it's regarded as a success. He's now played a part, rather than last night's 2-minute testimonial in Lyon, he's played a part in getting to this final. He deserves his medal. He scored against Real Madrid. They have been competitive. There's been Champions League money. The fans adore him. The day that he came back and they opened the gates, the stadium, the Calderon was practically full. And he still talks about that as being one of the best days of his life. And he said last night on the pitch that in sentimental terms, this was his number one night, ahead of winning the World Cup final, ahead of winning the Champions League, ahead of scoring the winner in Euro 2008, blah, blah, blah. This was his number one in terms of sentiment,
right? Because
he won a trophy for Atleti. And the two things I can throw into what you said is, number one, it wasn't Simeone and he don't necessarily always see eye to eye. It's not daggers drawn, it's not a major problem. But it wasn't Simeone who decided that Torres should come on and actually be on the pitch to win his first ever Atleti medal. That was Griezmann. When the score went to 3-0 and Gavi tucked that one home from the right of the penalty box, Griezmann celebrated, then went over to Mono Burgos and said, get Griezmann on for me. Get Torres on for me. Now, I like and respect that. And if you're asking about the gauge of success, for a fellow player to say, give this man, who I don't know all that well, Griezmann's not got a massive relationship with El Nino Torres. That was a big, big moment, and it wasn't Simeone's decision. And therefore, success, definitely. Europa League with Chelsea, Europa League with Atleti, World Cup, European Championships.
He lived the dream.
An extraordinary player, and he's not finished yet. He is finished at Atleti. And the goodbye at the weekend, and when they play Eibar, and when they need a point in order to assure themselves of finish second, will be an extraordinary outpouring of emotion a couple of hours before a similar outpouring of emotion at the Camp Nou, when Barca host Real Sociedad and Iniesta kisses his 99,000 beloved fans goodbye.
I do want to talk about Barcelona and Iniesta and losing that unbeaten record and what it means in terms of their greatness, and maybe it was appropriate that they didn't get to go through the entire season unbeaten, but we're pretty short on time. But we will look back on the entire La Liga season next Thursday night, Graham.
Love it, chat, Nathan.
Good stuff, Graham. We'll talk to you then. All right, time to take a quick break.
Off the Ball
on News Talk.
Welcome to a world of difference. Welcome to original Irish hotels. From manor houses to historic castles, charming country hotels and chic urban boutiques, each of our hotels